Hello, welcome back to another episode of Shift Notes. My name is Gian. Today we have an absolutely amazing guest. I'll just introduce our team again for those that are just tuning in. We have Mikey Ball, we have Laurie at a bar, and this afternoon, or this morning, wherever you're kind of tuning in from, we have Cam Timmins. He's a great friend of all of us. I felt very pleasured to have met him early on in my career. Done a few cocktail competitions with him, and he's kind of we've had a good time. I feel like we've kind of hung out and we've seen the world now. We've had similar sort of experience, especially in the last year where we were both meant to be living in New York last year, but then the world kind of changed a little bit. But I'm very excited to see what he has to say, and very excited to kind of like show you about his life. And yeah, does anybody else have anything they want to kind of say?
Yeah, no, stoked that you've made the time. For anyone who doesn't know, Cam's actually currently in isolation right now. So he's made time in his schedule to chat to us, and we're hoping we can bring some sanity and some laughs into your isolation stay, but also really interested to hear about your career journey because it's been a pretty incredible one, and it'll be really cool to share with the hospitality industry. You've gone to many places, worked in some pretty epic roles, and yeah, it'll be cool to give some of that wisdom and knowledge to other people in the hospo crew.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have worked alongside Cam in multiple places. I think it's quite cool in the fact that myself and G and maybe yourself, Laurie, you're maybe a bit baby, but we've all kind of worked along at the same time, and we've had some pretty heavy heart-to-heart conversations about how the industry's been going over the past 20 years, 15 years, Cam. So it'd be quite cool to kind of roll through a few of these today. So not too many of the stories though.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I don't know if it'll be wisdom, but I'll give it my best shot.
Or what not
Just
to
imagine
do.
you're having a beer, it's totally fine. Like, don't worry about it. All right, let's kick things off. So for those who don't know you, we just want to know a little bit about yourself. Like, we just want to know how you started in the industry. Like, what are some of like the highlight places that you've worked in, and like how you kind of like kick things off?
So my name's Cam, and I probably, like a lot of people that have worked or currently work in hospitality, sort of fell into it after high school. I kind of turned 18 and discovered the film Cocktail by Tom Cruise, and it's sort of, for me growing up, alcohol was very much a wine focused thing. It was at meals. It was a really family thing to sort of, all of a sudden have this thing I could go out with mates and be in these social places. And despite the fact that Tom Cruise is a complete weirdo, that movie was great. It was like, shit, bars, what? So I started working at a pub when I was at uni. I think that's actually where we met, like the Auckland Culinary Fair, like 14 years. Oh wow, 14 years ago.
It was more than that, man. It was more than that.
Wow. That's crazy. So look, just was spending a bit of time working, just bumming around pubs, and started to look at kind of what was going on in Auckland. And as I worked through uni, and then after uni, I ended up at some places like the Golden Dawn, RIP, which has turned into, I think, Hopper's Garden Bar now.
Mm-hmm.
A joint called Mea Culpa, Long Live the MC, which has, of course, grown into something, a beautiful iteration of the space into now Clipper. And the last hospitality role I had was with Saver Group, and that was doing Fukuko in Britomart and Ostro in the Seafarers building. So yeah, a real big mix of I suppose pubs to higher volume bars. Competed along the way quite a bit, and last across a sort of a bar restaurant group where I had the opportunity to work with some fantastic people and bartenders and managers, servers and runners, and some great leadership across the group. So that's sort of my hospitality career in a little nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show, like it doesn't mean like wherever you start, wherever you kind of like get your feet on the ground, like in hospitality, it could take you anywhere, like you could be a runner, you could be like a kitchen porter, like anything. It just kind of like it is what you want to make it to be. Okay, so you've worked in like a bunch of wicked places, but you're in isolation right now. Why are you in isolation? Like, were you out working somewhere? Like, have you just come back from like somewhere specifically? Like, what's your role these days?
Yes, so I what was supposed to be a brief few days in Sydney. I was one of the Kiwis that got stuck when the travel bubble paused. So currently, I'm back in New Zealand, and I'm now the commercial and brand development manager for Fever Tree in New Zealand. And so that role entails that I drive the commercial agenda for Fever Tree in New Zealand. I work in or alongside the distributor business Thirsty Camel here. So
Amazing.
I'm just chilling for the next kind of 12 days, 11 days or whatever. Like I'm still
one's
here.
counting.
Yeah.
Might be easier to forget.
That's amazing. Like, how did you get yourself into that sort of role? Like prior to, like, obviously there's the working in restaurants and bars, but like, how did you get yourself into that part?
I guess I've always sort of been quite curious about the world outside of hospitality, or the business or the structure that sort of influences that. So about 7.5 years ago, I left Sabre and started to work for Pernod Ricard as the New Zealand Spirits and Champagne Ambassador initially. I did that role for a few years, and one of the perks of a global business is you can move around within it. So I spent a few years in Australia, and then after that, I spent a few years in Sweden at the Absolut brand headquarters in Stockholm. So I came home in December 2020, and I was working remotely for a few months and took some time off, and I've been with Fever Tree ever since.
Amazing. Like, what does your sort of like day look like, kind of like working for that sort of like big group now? Like, because obviously there's elements of like, when you were working as an ambassador, you're constantly like on the ground talking to like hospitality staff and like talking to them about the brand. But like, what does your day look like now?
It's a hell of a lot of wow. The media training obviously didn't stick. It's a hell of a lot it's a hell of a lot different than it used to be. I like being awake early in the mornings now, which a 20-year-old me would have slapped in the face. I guess Fever Tree globally runs quite lean, so there's sort of not like a war room with people in clipboards running around. So I work within the distributor business Thirsty Camel here. So there's the liquor side of the business and the mixes with Fever Tree. So usually my day will start off, I'll have a look and see how sales numbers are going. I'll check emails. I work super closely with the team in Australia. While the brand itself is a truly global brand, it is quite lean. So there's sort of not different huge departments of people running around. We kind of get stuck in everything. So from literally just checking my emails and having a cup of tea, having a look at how the performance is going, to being out in trade with the field team, so meeting customers, and that's anything from a new world or a countdown, a buyer or a merchandiser in a supermarket to a liquor store, to a liquor land, a super liquor, going to meet anything from a head office level for promotions, pricing, or just checking out what's on shelf, because at the end of the day, that's the world we live in. And then last but not least, the nearest and dearest to my heart is on trade. So yeah, spending a bit of time out with our on trade field team with Thirsty Camel and seeing what's going on.
Sweet. Oh, that's pretty cool, man. I mean, bro, like we know, we could probably talk all day, have an absolute yarn. I've got one more question for you. What did you study at uni? Because it's always quite interesting. It's like we said, like you said, like so many people have like gone working in hospitality like whilst they were at uni, or like finish uni and then go on to like just work in hospitality. Like, just want to know what your sort of like background and your thought was like.
I don't know if I should be ever used for an ad campaign. Well, not with this face for the University of Auckland, but I loved uni, man. Like, I'd still be there if I could. So I eventually honed in. I did international relations with a minor in international business. So yeah, couldn't quite pick. So did the politics, and then just kind of grounded it with a bit of business, which has actually come to help me out in later life, because I had no idea what I was going to do at uni. I don't know, does anyone?
No, I think I had no idea.
Yeah, I stuck around I did my bachelor's, and then I did postgrad, and yeah, so international relations and some business.
Wait, it must have come in handy, obviously, with what you're doing now. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think probably my time in hospitality and the people that I met and the mentors and support that I kind of had from the business have taught me far more than I learned at university. But go to uni, go learn. I think it's a great environment to be in and see ideas and see the power of critical thinking. And you know, whether you get that from school or uni or a work environment, that's certainly where I think I picked it up anyway. It was at least critical thinking, and how not to serve shit beer at Shadows. No offense. Yeah, $5 a jug. Come on, it's not gonna be great.
I actually, that kind of leads me into a couple of questions. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about corporate life, but when you studied at uni and you got your degrees, a lot of people traditionally will kind of start to get into the business world, but then you kind of went into hospitality. And what was the draw card for you there? Because there's a few people who have kind of, you know, for example, Jacob Breyer studied law and then decided he loved hospitality. Like, what was the draw for you?
I think it wasn't long after the end of the global financial crisis, and I was having a better time making more money working in bars than a graduate salary at like a Fonterra or a corporate or whatever. And that was really the driver for me. You know, hospitality is quite an all-encompassing business, and I was really enjoying it. I was meeting people. I was making great friends. You know, by now I'd met Mikey and Gian and had some like good mates in the business. So I thought I'd give it a crack for a year or two and see how it went, because it was fun. And you know, when you're in your early 20s, it's like, do you want to take I mean, I know people do this and it's great, they do, and if this works for you, 100%. But you know, a kind of a graduate role where you're like, yeah, straight into kind of 9 to 5, or keep going, and what for me was quite a fun creative outlet, and I was getting paid for it.
Awesome. And it's obviously worked out. So so like something that's kind of interesting for me, so you've obviously made the jump into like initially a brand ambassador role, and I feel like there's a lot of people out there who probably are looking at doing things in their own lives in the hospitality career. What advice would you give to someone who is working in hospital now and potentially wants to look at a brand role in future?
Look, I think I read something the other day, and I thought it was quite relevant, and that the only constant is change. And personally, I don't believe in a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. I think they're bullshit, right? Because you set yourself up for failure, and you're only failing to yourself. Unless you're like super motivated by ticking off goals, then if that works for you, go for it. But it never worked for me. For me, I think I really enjoyed being in new environments, challenging environments. I tend to quite like being outside my comfort zone, which in a professional setting sometimes can be quite challenging. So for me, I just kind of saw the opportunity to see a different side of the business. I think by the time that I'd left hospitality, I'd been kind of bartending or running venues, etc., for nigh on 6 or 7 years at least.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really tallied it up, and that was kind of full-time, I think. And I've been supported by a really great boss, who's a great friend. Like Paul Franich is, to me, is family to this day, and I think I was really pushed in a positive direction to see what else there is in the world, because it's not just maybe what's in your bar or in your group. And that was an opportunity that I had to kind of see the other side of the business.
Awesome. And do you think that there's some things that people who are bartenders should know before they kind of step into a role like that? Or is there anything that, like, any skills that they should try and develop that you think are important?
I think I'm fundamentally coming from a hospitality background. You're going to have great interpersonal skills anyway. You deal with people on a daily basis. And I know everyone says this, but I love Anthony Bourdain, and there's that quote where he says, like, everyone should work in a restaurant. I think everyone should, because you do get those interpersonal skills. But I think the one thing that I maybe would say to anyone looking at a BA role is that you're probably seeing the job description as sort of this big, but the job and the influence that you're going to have within the trade and the work you're going to have to do is like this big. And sometimes people don't care who you are, and people don't want to be your friend. And that's not a bad thing, because you'll learn through hospitality and time stealing with annoying tables or splitting bills for 50 people. You kind of just got to roll with that, because the world is so much bigger than just maybe the drinks you're slinging in your bar and the people you'll meet, and be open to it and engage with it and come to it with a positive mindset. But not everyone wants to be your friend, as they might be in your workplace when they walk through at 5:30 on a Thursday night looking for a cold drink.
Yeah, okay, that's good advice. And then the switch, because you were working as a brand ambassador for several years, and then you switched into kind of more of a global business role as well. How did you prepare yourself to go from brand ambassador to suddenly a far more, I guess, business focused and marketing focused role?
I shouldn't say that I didn't. Winging it really has kind of worked out well for me, I suppose. No, look, I guess for me, as I said, what you'll see in ambassador roles, it doesn't matter if it's sort of for a small brand or a large globally run one. You see the structures at play and the decisions that get made. And for me, I kind of wanted a little bit more skin in the game, a little bit more stake in some of those decisions being made. And I guess that was more, you'd see things that go, oh, it'd be really cool if it looked like this, or and I was fortunate when I was working for Saver, they had a creative side of the business, so I had agency exposure, and I guess that I wanted to be involved in bigger stuff. When you see a label, or at least when I see a label, like, I look at the paper and the production, and I think I probably wasn't prepared for a lot of the jobs that I've ended up with, but at least in my mind. But what I think prepared me to cope with those situations was, in those environments, I think it's really important that people seek out constructive criticism and mentors and people that can help craft that critical thinking and your creative approach to things, because you can learn. You can always learn. But if you've got a shit attitude, you're going to suck at the end of the day, and you're never going to be good at anything. So unless you give it a crack and learn, because we're not like pre-programmed iPhones. So for me, I was just curious, and I was willing to learn and be told what to do by people smarter than me. And so I moved from a BA role in New Zealand to kind of an activation product development job in Australia, which was really cool for a couple of years, and then much more to a very marketing driven role with Absolut on Absolut Elix, and then the RTD business.
Wow, cool. Well, that's
a really long way to answer that question. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. No, this is giving us the backstory. This is what we want. We want the stories.
The whole point of this podcast.
Yeah.
You can also tell that I haven't really spoken to anyone in a couple of days, right?
This is perfect, because that means we have content, because sometimes, you know, if you ask questions and people are very short and you're like, oh, tell us more. So no, this is great. Talk away. So I guess my kind of one of my final questions for you will be, do you think that, like, looking back now that you've been working in the brand space and in the corporate space, and when you look back to the hospitality industry, and, you know, have your beliefs changed at all around the industry, and if so, how?
Yeah, I think you kind of look at it through your own ever-changing lens of experience, and I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I'm really grateful for the people that kind of sort of became stakeholders in my career and wanted to see me do good. You know, like I said, you know, Paul, who was my old boss at Ponderosa and Saver, you know, like I said, that guy's family to me and has had a huge effect, an impact on my outlook and career. And, you know, I would say that just as much as those people can change that as your lens changes. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's a very easy mindset to slip into sometimes, when it's kind of you in your bar thinking, you know, if this brand only did that, or you know, this would make everything better. You know, the global booze business is a huge beast. And the one thing I guess that I would challenge everyone listening to this podcast is, what you're thinking now is not something that you'll necessarily think in 5 years. And the only thing that's going to change that is being exposed to different businesses and different ideas and different thinking. You know, I was a terror for it. I'd see something on the shelf and just go, oh, fuck, really? That sucks. But probably without thinking that, you know, dozens of people had spent a lot of time working on that product, or that liquid, or that label, or even just working their asses off to get it on shelf. So yeah, check the ego and put your hand up and learn and ask questions and get involved. And I think it's, you know, the business has certainly evolved with having these conversations, and you guys are driving the healthy hospo message, which is massive. I think that's a huge shift. So yeah, I don't know if that necessarily answers the question, but
no, it's great. I totally agree. We have something that when I first started working at Line, they kind of one of the key things that stood out for me was like, seek to understand before you make any decision or you make any judgments, because I walked in being like, you know, fresh out of hospital, being like, oh, like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And the more and more you dig, you're like, actually, there's a whole warehouse out here full of all these hundreds of people and all this kind of stuff. And this is why this happens. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not as big, you know, the bar I worked at is not the priority in the grand scheme, but at the time when you work there, you do feel like that it is. But yeah, it is fascinating the more and more you learn. So my last question for you before I pass off to Mikey will be, what are some of your like big career highlights to date? Could be anything, could be fun, could be achievement focused, whatever.
Aside from the fact of having Burger King at like 3 o'clock in the morning with me in Wellington.
Oh, that was Cocktail World Cup, wasn't it?
That's a relic, isn't it? That Burger King doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, doesn't it?
No, it's all gone.
Oh, wow. Yes. Ooh, Cocktail World Cup. What a blast from the past. I got a memory about World Class the other day. God, we looked young. G had hair. Like heaps of it. Mikey didn't have a beard. I looked about 10. Wait, what was the question?
Career highlights.
Career highlights. Yeah, losing to Jason Clark in World Class.
Hopefully he listens to this.
Yeah, every year.
Still salty about that second place.
He had the goods, right? He knew.
Oh look, yeah, I saw JC and V in London, and fuck, I love those guys. They're so good. He deserved that too, which makes it even worse.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's so bad when good people win. You're just like, give me a reason to hate you. Oh look, I think I've been able to do some cool shit. And I hope that doesn't sound too ego driven. I think, you know, it's more, you got to put yourself in situations where you can do cool shit with cool people. I think the espresso martini on tap, which was a project I looked after in Australia, for Kiwis, despite Australia being super close and we think we're crazy about coffee, the East Coast and people in Sydney and Melbourne have been drinking espresso martinis for breakfast for years. It's weird, it's a bit gross. And so yeah, we kind of had this idea of an espresso martini on tap. So it's made with Kahlua, Absolut, and a cold brew that's made on the Central Coast. Completely artificial preservatives, nada, nitrogen, comes in a keg, pours like Guinness. Yeah, it's served completely ambient as well. It never really took off here. Just Kiwis don't drink enough coffee, venues aren't big enough. But what started as an idea on a whiteboard took me 2 years to figure out, and about no, I can't say that. A lot of monies. But yeah, that was really cool. Something that just kind of seemed like a cool idea, and there were people doing it in isolation, but to do it on a huge scale, I think launching some RTDs around the world was really, really cool. Yeah, the Pride can, I wasn't responsible for it. I looked after the implementation from a global level, but the Rainbow Pride can for Absolut Mixed. And yeah, I don't know, I think just having come from a bartender point of view of making drinks to then go tasting different liquids. And I love RTDs, I don't care what anyone says. Like, if you don't like them, eat a dick, get some perspective. And it's, yeah, I don't know, just going like, holy shit, 1 million people are going to drink this. And what we're drinking right now and making tweaks to are going to be part of good times for a lot of people, I think is something that I'm really proud about. And it wasn't just me. There are a lot of people that spent time working on all of these products. I just want to make that clear as well, that I'm a very cool part.
Very cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's something that that resonates with me at the moment, doing a lot of new product development for a few different brands, one of which obviously is East Imperial, and seeing that understanding. And like you mentioned before, I think probably one of the
what? Who?
We won't talk about that, mate.
No idea.
Look, you had one good one with the blue label. It's fine. It's all right. You can keep that. It's all right.
Whoa.
But
Stop recording.
One of the biggest pieces for me, seeing that, and I think kind of you almost alluded to it before, was this whole idea of walking in from a bar level where I would say it's craft, but it's more like unsustainable understanding of how you can produce something, and actually looking at something that can be sustainably produced at a commercial level and being like, whoa, actually volume, this is how we have to do this is how you have to put this together. How can I get all of that freshness into that? So probably a lot of stuff that people don't think about, specifically with RTDs, and specifically if you're looking to get the most delicious product out of the market, then there's a lot of research that goes into making sure that those flavors and stuff don't just taste like pineapple lumps. You know, it's genuinely that kind of drive. So there's so much behind that style of thing, which I'm lucky enough to be part of now. But it's really, really, really cool to see that that's something that you've seen too. Yeah. So I've got a really cool one, and this guy, I guess, is something. My question is kind of a close pieces that kind of closely resonate in my heart. I was part of a program, which I know you were as well. I was lucky enough to just do it in the UK and kind of be part of Tails whilst I was there working in London. But the Cocktail Apprentice program was something that I actually I remember you talking about when we kind of first worked together when I was helping out at Fukuko and the likes. So I really wanted to kind of get a little bit of insight as to how you experienced it and what you thought there. I guess maybe just a bit of a kind of brief breakdown of what the Cocktail Apprentice program is for any Kiwis that want to try and jump into it.
Yeah, I guess I probably want to preface my answer with two things. You know, it was a much different environment when I did the Cocktail Apprentice program. It's not to say it's any better or it's worse in the sense that I think it's a much more professional, education-driven platform now. And holy shit, what a time! What a time to be alive. And I think, you know, when I first did the CAT program, this was back in 2012. Wow. Yeah, we can edit that one out. I just applied on the off chance. I was fascinated by North America, the different schools of bartending. You know, this was sort of right around the time when like Jim Meehan was a really big deal. You know, Dead Rabbit and kind of Jack McGarry, etc. I mean, he was still drinking then, so you know, it was kind of it was 2011 when I applied. And it really opened my eyes to how much bigger the business is and the industry is and the people that are part of it. And at the time, you were kind of the learning mobile workforce of Tales of the Cocktail, which at that time, you know, was a massive booze fest. You know, it was a marathon, not a sprint, as we were kind of always told. And for me, just really seeing, you know, like 2,000 aviations made, like batching and bulk, and how to do it safely and carefully on about 2.5 hours sleep and a bowl of Cheerios. And yeah, look, like I said, it was just kind of throwing this like 20-something-year-old Kiwi kid into the big American kind of dream. I mean, gee, you're living it now, mate. You're beaming it from New York, bro. So you're doing it. And I think, yeah, it just showed me how big this business is and how big this world is, and but also how small it is as well. So
yeah, it's pretty massive to be thrown in that like deep end as well, right? Seeing what I mean, not just Tales itself or the Cocktail Apprentice program in general, but walking into a city like New Orleans is probably one of the craziest things, where you go to all these different bars. And I know I've been there with G, and you walk into these places where these cocktails that we've been making for generations that were invented, and it's like, what?
Yeah,
really?
You know, this
hasn't
like
been
New
cleaned
Orleans
either.
is a wild city.
Yeah,
like, all of us have been there, actually. Like, all of us have been to New Orleans, and it's such a crazy place.
Man, I love it. I've been back like I think 4 times.
Yeah, that was a wild week.
I think the work that the shift to be really education driven and growth driven and sharing of knowledge, as opposed to just a huge piss up, is a really good thing for the business. You know, I don't know if you caught this, but I saw a post on Instagram from Sam Edgerton, who's quite senior in Maryvale in Australia, like a huge influence, I think, in our industry, just around driving that education.
No, we're good. Got it.
That's awesome.
I don't know if I can repeat that again.
No, we've got it. We got it.
We gotcha.
We got some shady
Lock it in.
We actually never froze last time. We just
wound you
everything again.
See how good my media training is. This is a word to all people that potentially want to work in corporate. When they offer you all of the continued learning, Laurie, you've probably done it at Lion, like the media training, the public speaking training, fucking do it.
That's the best. Yeah, we're actually trying to bring some of that training out to the hospo industry as well through Healthy Hospo, because I was like, when I first walked into corporate, I was like, oh my goodness, where was this when I was working in a bar?
Yeah, I've done heaps of it, and on a side note, if you want to hit me up, I'd love to be involved.
Yeah, cool. There we go. Watch out for 2022 workshops coming.
But it's that crazy thing. I don't know if people still do it, but maybe this is why I never won a major cocktail comp, is I never rehearsed. Whereas when you become a BA, like, you can't just wing it, you get fired, because you can't say stupid shit to journalists. And good public speaking is about rehearsing it, and it's a script in your head, you know. So when you are presenting, it should be like the back of your hand, not you're hearing it for the first time like everyone else is, which I would never advocate you do. because
This
that's
never
a terrible
happened.
approach. No, everything I presented as a BA was well researched, and it was scripted. But it's like when you see TED Talks, people don't wing that shit, man. Like that's maybe this isn't a new line of thinking for people, but yeah, if you want to be good at something, you have to practice it and you have to make it. And that's the key to public speaking. No one's good at public speaking.
You bring up such a cool piece. Actually, I watched a little. I didn't watch. I listened to a podcast with Douglas McMaster, and when he did that first ever TED Talk on Silo, he was like, I took a 4-hour, like almost a 4-hour chat, and tried to put it into 12 minutes. It's like I practiced and practiced and practiced, and then when he did it, he was like, I didn't like it. I didn't like it in the end.
Oh, wow.
It's like, no matter how much practice you can put in and how much you have to, and that's just how crazy that would have been wordsmith, how much you had to break it down.
They do have
Yeah,
a really
right.
great book called like Speaking Like TED or something, where they break down some of the, and they basically just say stories, keep it tight, practice.
Yeah. Awesome. So outside of the cocktail apprentice program, my bro, we wanted to kind of chat a little bit about hardships and challenges. Nothing too ruthless, but I mean, I guess what are some of the biggest challenges in your career? We've all been through some pretty crazy ones, and there's always challenges with moving overseas and working in different businesses and putting your hand out there. But is there any that kind of spring to mind as challenges, good or bad?
Yeah, I think for me, I've kind of always just had an approach to business and work of, if you don't do it, you won't know. And I think that certainly got me into some situations where I was probably a little bit over my head. But I think through that's when you learn, you need to be really open to looking to have some advice and people guide you. This isn't North Korea. We live in a capitalist world, right? Results have to come. And I think probably something for me moving out of a BA role, I was really well supported in New Zealand. But when I moved to Australia, and then it was a much more kind of business driven, brand marketing driven environment. And so I think a challenge that I had was really getting my head around the not corporate, but a world outside of hospitality where you're not necessarily friends with everyone, but you kind of live and let live. And the world outside of hospitality, people don't necessarily give a shit who you are. They're there to punch the time clock because they've got things outside of their work. Hospitality, I think, particularly in smaller markets. No, actually, scratch that. Hospitality everywhere is quite a small circle. Your workmates become your friends. Your family relationships. We've all kind of met partners for brief periods of time, one night or months or whatever. It's hospitality is that bubble. Whereas the world outside of that isn't like that. Not everyone wants to be your friend. Some people couldn't give a shit where you come from, who you are. They're there to punch the time clock or punch their time card and get out and do other things, and I think for me it was just that realization. And I was young too. I think I was quite young for a brand ambassador, so was just getting my head around that.
Do you think there's like a level of, I guess we're probably all people who would say we're quite passionate, specifically from like a bartending side, we're very passionate when we go into those roles. And I think often when you walk into an office, like you said, when people are just time stamping, there's a level of like, I always talk about me personally compared to my father, and my father's like amazing at what he does, but he goes to work to go to work. That's it. He's not passionate about what he does. He goes to work because he's had to. And that's such an old format now. Like we're all very lucky to work in an industry that we're passionate about, but there's also people that are surrounding us in that industry that don't necessarily put as much or care as much about the actual physical piece, right?
Yeah, but the world's changed. I think we kind of came from that generation where working on 2 hours sleep because you'd misbehaved the night before was a badge of honor, right? And
Yeah,
I think
punishment.
yeah, you kind of be like, yeah, fuck, I didn't sleep last night. Like, how good's booze and shots? I think I'd
Don't know
fuck
how.
someone now if they offered me a shot. I mean, it is 10 a.m. But you know, and that really gave me a glimpse into I think people that kind of didn't see that as a valuable way of life, or you know, for me, certainly kind of stepping into a corporate role or a more business-driven role is, you know, you're only as good as the results you put out, and you have to take care of yourself, and you have to kind of get better at that. And I think, you know, I know this isn't answering the question, but the shift in the industry to take care of yourself and recognize negative behaviors and correct that, because, you know, who would have thought eating one meal a day, drinking, and other sort of narcotics consistently are bad for your health? Like, surprise, surprise, of course you're going to be depressed, like, you know. But we didn't think about that 15 years ago. Like, yeah, fuck, how good's 20 beers and shots? Now it's like, how good's actually going to the gym and eating vegetables and not being a dick? So yeah, and that exists outside of the world of hospitality. So I guess it's maybe the one second. Hello. Okay, I'm just in a meeting. Can about 15 minutes. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Bye. All right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, look, I got to get my second negative COVID tag.
Collect them all.
Yeah, I got to get something else put on my nose at 10 a.m.
Oh no. Wow, times have changed.
No. My next little piece, like you mentioned before, I guess with challenges, obviously you're pretty driven in the fact that overcoming things is kind of, not necessarily faking it till you make it would not be the right way to put it, but obviously
100%.
testing things to understand them. Or we'll pretend that you didn't say that. but the only way to do it, the only way to find out how something works is actually trying it or doing it, right? So with that, like, is there any like major challenges that you've crossed, and is there any ways that you've kind of tackled them, or maybe some tips that you have for some of our listeners?
I guess I'm only sort of speaking through kind of my experience, right? Because that I don't have anyone else's. You know, you got to be humble, and you've really got to be willing to learn from people that do know more than you. And I think, you know, I'm probably at a point in my life and career now where I'm not just winging shit. You know, I think it's been probably a good kind of maybe year or two now where I'm not in that place. But I guess maybe instead of probably referencing specific examples, my advice to anyone listening to this that's considering what to do next, or even just listening because they're bored on their way to work or whatever,
Quarantine.
Stay strong. is just be humble. Check the ego. I think maybe, you know, we come from a small hospitality market where it's quite easy to be well, no, not easy. It's probably quite linear to become quite well known and have a bit of a reputation. And, you know, even though it's a big wide world and it's a small business, it is a small business. You know, I met Leah Robacek, who was running the CAP program in 2011, 2012. And then I worked with him when I worked on Absolut Headquarters. You know, and he remembered me, and that was great. And, you know, you just be careful with your words, be careful what you say. You know, don't speak when you should listen, and don't be a fucking dick. You know, like check your ego at the door, because there's always going to be someone that knows more than you, and just be open to that and own it and be good at it. Don't be afraid to be good at what you do, but don't be a dick about it. Is kind of the one thing that I would say from this.
Awesome. Yeah.
Got a bit deep, didn't it?
No,
That was great.
it is such vital
Awesome.
information, though.
Straight to
You
the
know,
point.
like
Yeah.
especially in New Zealand is a very small place, and I think sometimes we forget about that. If you ever go and work overseas, you can quite easily just go under the radar, and you can often say what you want, especially in the bartending community. But here, like, we're so small. One thing, world travels, and it's not to say that it's good to do it overseas. I'm just saying that you can come from quite a different background and not really understand it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's not to say that the world doesn't care who you are, because the world doesn't care who you are, but the things that you can learn in a small market, you can be exposed to MP or product development, or, you know, I think in New Zealand you do get to meet a lot of people from more traditional marketing backgrounds. You know, Laura, you've definitely seen it in Lion, and that's certainly not a bad thing. But I guess the other thing that I would really push anyone listening to this, obviously in light of the global pandemic, you kind of can't, but go out and travel, see the world in business and life, because if you've just got this tiny little bubble, and it doesn't matter if you come from kind of North America or Europe, if you stay where you're staying, you're only going to see it through that lens and that way. And I think, you know, if you really want to grow, doesn't matter if it's in the booze business, like, just fuck, get out and see some shit, be exposed to different ways of life, and different people and different ways of doing business, because you learn how to influence and understand and just do shit better and differently and be a better human. So yeah.
I love that. I know, it's so good. I love it. I totally agree with that, because I think that sometimes hospitality can be quite insular. You only talk to your people, you're only part of your industry. And then, like shifting kind of even to corporate, where we have like external speakers come in from different industries completely unrelated to ours and just speak to us about their management and leadership styles and all that kind of stuff, was just mind-blowing. So it's just, I love that. Like, keep seeking information, learn from as many as different people as you can, read different books.
You know, and you'll never know where it will take you. I mean, when I stared working on Absolut Elix, like, my induction was a 24-hour kind of deep dive into Las Vegas. And, you know, it's sort of like, you get to do some incredible shit, but you have to step outside your comfort zone to do that. And if it's just bashing out the same drinks in the same bar, if that works for you, that's cool. But, you know, expect to do that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, gee, you're beaming in from New York, bro. Mikey, I've sat at your bars in London, which isn't the Mondrian Hotel anymore. It's like Trainworks or something weird.
Sea Containers,
yeah.
It is the same place. They just changed the name.
yeah. I was. Well, I wasn't there. I was there quite a while ago now. And I think, just the shit that you can do, man, when you step outside your comfort zone and push and put yourself into some uncomfortable situations.
100%. I think you end up getting quite insular when you just surround yourself by things that you're comfortable with as well, right? As soon as you've got things that you're not necessarily comfortable with, they'll open your mind up as well. Even if it is positive or negative, you need both. You genuinely need to learn from the bad as well, and learn what not to do, I guess, is probably a really good call on that.
Yeah. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. I got told that about a week ago. And yeah, Andy, if you listen to this, mailed it. But yeah, I kind of got told that. I was like, actually that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Not that I'm
the definitive weeds.
Oh yeah.
The definitive weeds. My last little piece for you, bro, is obviously we know nothing of Scandinavia really. I've spent very minimal time up there, and I really liked it. But how was living in Scandinavia, and what were some of your basic challenges up there, or the crazy experiences you had?
It was a trip, man. It was an interesting couple of years. Look, I think it's a very different way of life. And Swedish people are really, really, really lovely. They're warm, despite the awful cold temperatures. but it's a very different way of life compared to New Zealand. People tend to be a little bit more insular. They kind of have their three friends, and that's sort of it. And again, that's not a negative thing. That's just how different people live. It's cold. I don't really like the cold, which probably wasn't the smartest move for someone that doesn't like the cold to move to Scandinavia. But it's it's a really interesting place. And even though Absolut has a pretty minimal kind of footprint in New Zealand, Absolut's a really, I mean, it's the largest brand within the Pernod Ricard group, and it has a huge presence overseas. So just being at that global headquarters and being exposed to global initiatives around transgender and LGBTQI plus rights, and what the brand was doing there in certain markets, to what I was doing on Elix, and some brand advocacy stuff, and then RTDs. It's a pretty crazy place. You've kind of got to go and experience it, and hope you like fish, because they eat lots of fish.
I love Stockholm.
Yeah.
I thought it was a crazy city. I did find myself getting my English checked a lot more than I thought I was going to be. Like the first time I went to Stockholm, I was like on the plane, like with Duolingo, trying to learn some Swedish. And I got there, the first person I like spoke to, they were like, "Hello, sir. How are you today? How may I help you?" I'm just like, "Bro, your English is better than my English." Like, I can hear the comments.
Because I was instantly about to be like, "Yeah, hard out, bro." And that's why, Swedes speak better English than Kiwis. And I mean, it's, to be honest, the one thing that I learned, and this is not hospitality related at all, is that the country completely functions with two different languages. So they speak Swedish and English more often than not better than you or I. So yeah, when I kind of came home, and I'm not Maori at all, but it definitely changed my view of, we can have two functioning languages here. That it's not a token thing, but there's no reason why we all can't speak Te Reo Māori and English and function, because the Nordics do it, huge amounts of the world do it, and I don't really give a fuck if your political views line up with that or not, but functionally it works everywhere else. And so coming home, it's kind of been a bit of a reality check for me, being like, I mean, culture's, it's not relative. It's not like you can have too much culture. I mean, maybe you can, in I don't know, grey power or something, but hey, they're not listening to this, so whatever.
Cam, before we wrap up, I just have one question for you. In your short time being back, like obviously coming back from doing your worldly travels, is there anything like you've seen in the industry that like really kind of caught your eye, like, or is there something that you would kind of like want to see change in the industry? Like, kind of want to get your views on like what's how you felt being home again.
Not change. I think, I hate the term unprecedented times, because it's if we have to hear that again, and I can't believe I just said it. I think we've really seen over the last kind of 18 months how sensitive hospitality is to changes within the social dynamic, and there's a real job to be done. And this doesn't lie just within hospitality, around kind of trying to change that behavior of people staying home. It takes less than 90 days to change a behavior in your head, and when you've got a society that's staying at home now, I think there's a real job to be done around telling those stories and getting people back out, because it's not just about bars anymore. It's not just about restaurants. It's about creating that kind of convivial culture, and how we all can play a part in that, because sitting at home is shit. It's lame. I mean, it's nice to do every now and again, but you want to get out and support businesses. And I think that's just something that we need to be really conscious of, is that there is that challenge. It's not all roses at the moment, and I think we need to be collaborative and not just I mean, it's business at the end of the day, but there's a real big piece on making sure people are aware of getting out. And I think, you know, the work that you guys are doing, I think that really needs to be called out, and credit to you, because the industry has been on this journey of professionalization. I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, for a long time, people kind of like, ooh, day walkers, I don't want to grow up. I mean, on your shit, be an adult. You know, if you want to make $15.50 an hour for the rest of your life, that's cool, but don't complain about it. You know, and I think the message that you guys are pushing around, you know, healthy hospo, I think really needs to be commended, and credit to you guys for doing this, because that's the one thing, you know, as I've gotten a little bit older, you kind of look back on and see certain people in the industry or examples and go like, you could be so much healthier and happier and better at what you do if you maybe just didn't ingest certain things on the weekend, or you know, just ate some vegetables and took care of yourself, because, you know, that's really important in your life in hospitality or outside of it. So I think I'll just use that to give you guys full credit, and please keep doing what you're doing, and do the good work.
Awesome, thank you. Well, well, this chat has been very informative. There's been lots of wisdoms prior to what you said earlier.
Way too much.
No, this is great. We've loved it. It's been an awesome.
We could talk for hours.
Yeah, honestly, if we could make this podcast 2-3 hours, and we thought people might listen to it, but we'll try and keep it short.
No one wants to hear me talk shit for 2 hours. Not even my girlfriend. Maybe my mum.
I feel like we're just getting started, Cam. I feel like we could get plenty more.
I've been gone for so long, no one knows who I am. Like, the bars I work in aren't even open anymore.
Yeah.
They'll be like, weren't you that old ambassador?
No, it was so interesting, and I feel like there's so much that people could take from your experiences and your career journey. And I mean, you've been to so many places, and yeah, have loved some of the messages and wisdom that you had to share with us. So thank you so much. We look forward to all hopefully catching up with you for a beverage sometime when you're back out of isolation.
In real life.
In real life, IRL.
So nice,
Gee, you'll have to zoom
Fever
in.
Tree gin and tonic. Hey,
Man, you're more than welcome.
yeah.
We'll just have to go somewhere where they stock both of our products.
Yeah.
We know we have to drink Schweppes. I think we'll both have to drink Schweppes. Yeah.
No, I choose death.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm not coming.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For anyone
Thanks,
who loves
brother.
our podcast, feel free to share. We always love it when, you know, you guys let us know if you've enjoyed what we're up to, so we know that we're just not chatting to ourselves. But no, thank you so much, and it's awesome to have you on, and good luck with the rest of your quarantine.
Right on. Thank you. Yeah, and if anyone didn't like it, too bad. I'm not going to read the negative comments.
All right, see you, team.
See you guys.
Thanks,
All
bro.
right. Thank you.